This fly is my version of George Daniel's chartreuse catnip, and I'm starting off with a size 10 scud hook and an 1/8 inch gunmetal or black tungsten bead. And to give this fly some additional weight, I'm going to start off by taking maybe 8 to 10 wraps of lead wire underneath, and just break that off. And I'm going to push that in really just to secure the bead head and trim off that last bit with my nail. Once everything's in and secure, I'm going to start adding my thread, and this I'm going to use a 70 black. I'm just going to start that right behind that lead and then wrap it up a couple of times behind the bead head and a couple of turns down just to get everything nice and secure, and I can break off the excess thread with my finger. Then to that, the ribbing that we're going to use is a 3X tippet material, and I'm just going to cut off a section of this. And tie that in again just behind the lead and bring that all the way down to the bend of the hook. For the body material, this is one of the substitutes that I make, or one of the differences in the original pattern. I use this 1mm Cactus Chanel for my body, and it calls for 2 different colors, and I make a little bit of a substitution there as well. I'll use one color. The thorax is a dark thorax, and so what I do there is I just use my Sharpie to fill that in. So I'll use this Cactus Chanel. I pull back some of the fibers to expose that core, so it gives me a good tie-in point, and then I'll wrap that all the way back down to where I have my ribbing tied in, and then just bring that all the way back up to the front. Just going to put a couple more turns over the lead just to make sure everything's nice and secure, and then I can start wrapping my Cactus Chanel up all the way to the front. And with this, I don't want to have any of the underbody exposed, but I do space out my wraps enough so that these fibers aren't sitting right on top of one another, so that they can move freely. So I keep them slightly separated, and I'll bring this all the way to behind the bead head here, and then I'll just secure that with a wrap or 2 on top and underneath, and I can trim up that excess bit of Chanel. Then this is where the thorax portion of this calls for black material, so I take my Sharpie and then I can just fill in that. And darken that in. Then for the back of this, we use mottled, and I use oak thin skin, and I'm just going to take that out. I'm going to cut about an 1/8 to 1/4 inch section, depending on what size fly you're going to be tying. You want it to be wide enough that it falls over on the ends. So I'll just cut a strip of this. Remove the backing, and I can tie this in right to the front, just behind that bead. Then I want to stretch that down, and now I can take my ribbing material and secure the back with that ribbon. Kind of reposition it here as you go, and then just nice even segments all the way up. Until I get to the top, then I can make my wraps. and then start to clean it up. Remove this excess monofilament on the top and the excess on the back. Add a couple of whip finishes here. Trim off the thread. Make any final adjustments that I want to how the backing is situated. And there it is. That's my version of George Daniels Chartreuse Catnip.